There are seasons when God calls you to build boldly, and there are seasons when he calls you to slow down and listen. The tension comes when you are carrying vision or stewarding responsibility and trying to honor God without knowing which season you're in. If you've been questioning your productivity, wrestling with rest, or wondering whether you're doing too much or not enough, this episode is for you. In today's episode of The Consecrated CEO, we are talking about how to discern God's timing so you can rest or build with confidence, clarity, and obedience rather than guilt, fear, or pressure. Heat up your coffee for the third time and let's go. If you're tired of juggling work, family, big business dreams, but long for the focus and courage to finally step out in obedience, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Lanisha, life coach and kingdom entrepreneur. I know what it takes to demolish fear and rise in bold identity while building a business that glorifies God and leaves a harvest that outlives you. Are you ready to dive in? Grab your journal and cup of joe because we're going straight from the secret place into strategy. It's time to build boldly. We are jumping straight into the points today. Point number 1, rest is not the absence of work. It is the presence of God's instruction. One of the greatest misconceptions about rest is that it means stopping altogether. Scripture shows us that rest is not inactivity. Rest is being aligned. Rest is knowing when God has spoken and refusing to move without his instruction. Moses understood this very deeply. After leading Israel out of Egypt, Moses entered what looked like this unproductive season to the natural eye. The wilderness wasn't fast. It wasn't efficient. It didn't resemble success. But spiritually, everything was being established, even though it didn't look like that in the natural. Exodus 16 reveals that God provided manna daily, yet he set clear boundaries around how it was gathered. The people were not allowed to store more than what they needed, and they were commanded to rest on the seventh day. This wasn't about slowing them down, though. This was training them to trust. God was teaching Israel that provision didn't come from effort. It came from obedience. Moses had to lead people who were learning that working harder didn't equal being safer. Gathering nonstop was fear-based. Resting actually required faith. We also see that Moses modeled this personally. And so when pressure increased and when his leadership role got heavy, Moses withdrew into the presence of God. In Exodus 33, verse 7, it tells us that Moses went to the tent of meeting and the Lord spoke to him face to face. That withdrawal, it wasn't avoidance. It was instruction. Rest was the place where Moses received clarity. At the Red Sea, rest itself was obedience. Exodus 14, verse 13, records Moses telling the people, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord." Movement at that moment would have led to destruction. Stillness positioned them for deliverance. And then there were times when movement was required. Numbers 9, verses 17 through 23 shows Israel moving only when the cloud lifted and stopping only when it settled. They didn't decide their own pace. They followed God's instruction. This is the revelation for you as the woman called to more. Rest is not disengagement from purpose. Rest is refusing to move without direction. Productivity that is not submitted to God's instruction will eventually exhaust you, but productivity that flows from his voice will sustain you for generations. This is why productivity cannot be separated from presence. If you are building without checking in with the one who's actually laying that foundation, you might be busy, but you ain't anchored. Journal this as we pause. Lord, where have I been resting without seeking your instruction? Where have I been working without inviting your presence? Point number 2, God often commands rest before increase, not after. We often assume that rest comes after the breakthrough, after the launch, or after the season of growth. But Scripture tells a different story. Leviticus 25, verse 4 says, "But in the 7th year, there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land." God didn't wait until the land was exhausted to command rest. He required rest before continued fruitfulness. And this is something that reveals a very powerful way about how God thinks. He understands capacity. He knows what we can carry. He understands sustainability. He understands what happens when growth is forced instead of stewarded. Rest is not punishment. Rest is preservation. God knew that if the land kept producing without pause, it would eventually collapse. The same is true for you and me. When God slows us down, He's not withdrawing favor. He's strengthening what will carry future increase. This is where frustration creeps in for many women. You feel delayed. You feel like momentum has stalled. But what feels like delay is often mercy. God is reinforcing that foundation so that what He multiplies is not going to crush you. In the supernatural, rest recalibrates your hearing. It opens your ears to hear. It quiets the noise. It realigns your spirit. And it positions you to receive instruction that you would miss if you stayed in motion. When women come into coaching with me, this is one of the most common revelations. I mean, what they thought was resistance was actually God protecting their future effectiveness. He was guarding their mantle. He was preserving their strength. He was ensuring longevity. Journal this down. Lord, where have you been inviting me to rest that I have been resisting? What are you protecting in me right now? Point number 3, building seasons require obedience before clarity. There are seasons when God will not give you the full picture before He asks you to move. 1 Kings chapter 17 shows us Elijah being sent to the brook Cherith. God provided there for a time. Then the brook dried up. God did not explain why ahead of time. He redirected Elijah only after obedience was established. And this is how God builds trust. He gives instruction, not explanations. He might sometimes give you a little bit of an explanation. If you wait for clarity before obedience, you will miss your moment. And if you wait to feel confident, you're going to stay stuck. Faith moves first. Understanding follows later. This applies to business, ministry, leadership, and personal calling. There are seasons when God says build, even when the numbers don't even make sense. There are seasons when He says move, when you feel completely unprepared. I can't imagine going through these seasons without wise counsel and coaches. The Lord has provided me with special women of God who have poured into me in different seasons as I was growing, and I'm still growing. I still have mentors and coaches today. Sometimes the biggest shifts can come with working with someone who has walked through the place that you're entering. Learning how to recognize instruction and move with God, even when clarity is still unfolding, is something that I work with you on in our sessions. Journal this down. Lord, where are you asking me to move without full clarity? What obedience have I been postponing? Point number 4, productivity must answer to instruction. Isaiah 30 verse 15 says, in returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness and trust shall be your strength. Striving always feels urgent. Building feels ordered. Now, there is a difference, though, when you have that urgency in your spirit, when you know that the Lord has put something within you and it is burning within you to do that one thing. However, there will still be order with that fire that He puts within you. Striving will also drain your strength. Building will multiply it. Productivity becomes dangerous when it disconnects you from the one who is laying the foundation. You cannot be so busy that you forget to ask God to breathe on what you're building. And if He is not strengthening it, it will not stand for generations. Productivity that is not submitted to instruction will eventually demand much more than it gives. But productivity that flows from obedience, it's going to come with peace, clarity, and endurance. The woman that is called to more, I'm talking to you. Yes, you're listening right now. You are called to more. You have to pause. You have to ask, and you have to listen. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Not every open door is God. Wisdom protects your energy, your focus, and your calling. Ask God. Ask Him for the wisdom. And this is where many women miss it. They move because they can, not because they were told. But movement without instruction leads to exhaustion, not fruit. Journal this down. What am I doing out of pressure instead of obedience? What has God actually assigned me to build in this season? Let's recap what we covered today. Rest is found in God's presence, not in an empty schedule. God often commands rest before increase. Obedience comes before clarity in building seasons. Striving drains you, but strategic building strengthens you. Take time to sit with these questions today and find if this episode stirred something in you Maybe it tugged on something deep down. And you need community with women who are learning to discern seasons and learning to build with wisdom. You can join us in our community, the Christian Women Entrepreneurs Community on Facebook. I also have some super exciting news. I'm going to be doing a live teaching in January. Stay tuned for the dates. Be sure to sign up for the insider email so you can stay informed. You can go to the consecrated CEO insider.grwebsite.com. The link is also in the description. And if you're ready for mentorship and you want someone to walk alongside you as you navigate productivity, obedience, and your calling, you can visit theconsecratedceo.com/coaching to learn more about coaching with me. Until next time, build with the King. Hey, Kingdom friend, I pray today's episode stirred something in your spirit. If it did, would you take a few seconds to share it with a few women who you know this would resonate with? And if you haven't yet, I would be honored if you could leave a quick review. It helps this message reach more women who are ready to rise. All right, time to strap myself down and laser focus on all the things. No squirrel zone. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Until then, keep building boldly.